Mumkib dimber jimbe stagdan kur dadak tamchit tonla medna yang zonzon wanga stemjir dimmer na chipchiz zonzon yang samana par jimje leyo ti chirwa ti semgin dabshit semgi legan shit semlar na jang semgi tagbe na chirwa semdir slat batparam zod chirtir dad rayim nyuba la na chog snawa manja jishar yang tamchit chirwa Zigde Tonla Med Devjin, Semchirvayi, Jarvayi, Rojigin Chirna, Mali Jernitgan, Merna Tonga, Zingin Shibram Zod, Tertun Kori Ranjin, Zingin Jin, Tomer Ganlev Shung of Taber, Ki, Dei, Nyang Debi Ranjin Shi, Chiller Namjur, Dexia, Gombor and Yer, Tagba Chimbu Manga of Tamju Yujin Zole, Zillian Kura Trips of Tamba Legate, Tambogo.
Today we should be able to finish the first chapter. That's really good. To liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the Supreme Bodhicitta. Now we have already covered the ground that gave rise to samsara from the first chapter, and then we already covered what the base is like and how it arises. Also, previously we already covered on the faults associated to objective phenomena according to some foolish ones, since they view that the objective phenomena is simply the same as karmic tendency of phenomena, but that is not true. If you were to say that the phenomena is exactly equivalent to the karmic tendency of a phenomena, then you're simply saying that object is mind. In this way, there are lots of faults associated to it, such as confusion and such as absurdity. We already covered it yesterday. Of course, in terms of phenomenon, if when we say that the appearances are no other than mind, in fact, when we were studying Buddhist logic, the Pramana teachings, there are two types of appearances that we talked about. One is phenomena, one is the imagined phenomena. There are the two types of perception as well. There's a direct and the imagined. So over here, particularly, the imagined appearance or the appearance that is attached to dualistic thoughts, dualistic splits, they are also called the phenomena with fixation. There are two types of these kinds of phenomena with fixation, which is the phenomena that is based on names, and then another one is based on concepts. The imagined phenomena, they can be called as our mind, because other than our mind, there is no true characteristic attached to that phenomena, though it is based from phenomena. But then the phenomena or the appearance that is referred over here, which is stated that it's not mind, is the phenomena that is not dualistic. It doesn't have the dualistic split. The view that is presented over here is recognized and agreed upon by the Sautrantika school as well as the Madhyamika school, because in those schools they also agree that there is one objective phenomena as well. But what it doesn't agree upon is that this objective phenomena is our mind. I believe right now many of our fellow practitioners are currently studying it and analyzing it attentively. This is quite important. Let's continue with today's class, where it has two aspects on the teaching of observing the nature of it. The first one is the actual explanation. The second one is a quality of making observation. Out of the actual explanation, there are two as well. The first one is knowing the three phenomena are simply illusory appearances, and the second one is that all the appearances are reliant on the mind. So let's look at the first one. The first verse over here says that object phenomena give rise to apprehended conception. Consciousness give rise to apprehending conception. Body as trap of defilement and support. By fixating on the true existence, the foolish ones, the ignorant ones, constantly spin in samsara.
不止那个前面的这些的人呢，就是横向扭转，但于 应该语者好一点。这样的，那么这个寄送呢
Now let us look at this verse.
讲一下，就是实际上是昨天就是
Yesterday we already covered on the three karmic tendencies, which are the karmic tendencies of phenomena of consciousness and of body. So these karmic tendencies are really important aspects of teaching included in the seven treasuries as well as other tantras. It's a very important term in Buddhism. By relying on phenomena, then various kinds of dualistic thoughts would arise, such as this is a mountain, that is the ground, and women and man. So those are the phenomenal world. By relying on phenomenal world, then the apprehending mind of dualistic thoughts would arise. By relying on consciousness, over here particularly we are talking about the gathering or the compounded eight consciousness. It is the apprehending dualistic thoughts. And I believe for those people who studied Madhyamika and Abhidharma and so on, you must have studied them already and you know what they are. So basically it means that by relying on the external phenomena, then it generates the object of clinging, and by relying on the consciousness, then all kinds of apprehending dualistic thoughts would arise. Yesterday we also talked about the karmic tendency of body. As you are quite aware, by having the phenomena as well as the consciousness, then the body combines both of them, because body acts as a place for those to rely, and then it acts as a support for the webs of afflictions to rely on. So it's a base. Therefore, the happiness and suffering, all of those would arise based on the apprehended as well as the apprehending, and all kinds of affliction attached to body. However, those kinds of causes and conditions for the ignorant ones, for the foolish ones, they would take those causes and conditions as real, as solidly existent. They would think that, okay, the body is solidly existent, same as phenomenal, same as the feelings of suffering and happiness. And for this reason, they will continuously to spin in samsara, to get lost in samsara. In the commentary, it also quoted from the question of Rashtrapala, where it says that the world is like an illusion, and like a dream, like water in the moon reflected in the water that doesn't have any self, without any realistic existence. By holding on to them, we still take rebirth in samsara, we still wander in samsara. So we know that as the foolish ones, we are the mundane beings who are quite ignorant. These are the reason we are still spinning in samsara. The three karmic tendencies work in such a way that the karmic tendency of phenomena and of consciousness, they have their own functions. On top of that, body combines them and then mix them together, which means the external world as well as our mind are all mixed up together. So all the afflictions as well as the causes and the conditions get all entangled, and then all kinds of illusory manifestations of samsara would manifest. So we should understand that this is how we're still spinning in samsara. Now let's look at the nature of it. It says that although without any intrinsic existence, there are illusions arise from conditions of dualism. Before dualism ceases, as long as there is still karmic causes and fruitions, then these manifestations will continuously to appear. This is quite important to know that there is no intrinsic existence, let it be samsara or any of the apprehended or apprehending, the animate or inanimate. If we were to look at them, to observe them with our wisdom, we will be able to see that there is no intrinsic existence. Without intrinsic existence in the absolute sense, it doesn't mean that it is void. It doesn't mean that there is nothing. In fact, in front of our confused manifestation, in front of our confused perception, there are still manifestations, there are still illusory appearances of suffering and happiness. Those are the fruitions of the dependent arising. These kinds of illusory manifestation of dependent arising, whatever we see, whatever we feel right now, those appear simply because of our dualistic grasping. But they do not have any intrinsic existence. They are the appearance, but doesn't have any intrinsic existence. Does it mean that you can do whatever you wish? That is not true. You shouldn't do that, because you still have the dualistic grasping. Then before all of those dualism dissipate into Dharmadhatu, there is still karma, there's still cause, and there is still fruition that will continuously to manifest in samsara. I hope you understand this important teaching here. All phenomena is without intrinsic nature, is without any intrinsic characteristic, but without their intrinsic nature doesn't mean that we're not bound by the rule of karmic causes and fruition. It doesn't mean that we can do whatever vicious things that we wish. Because before our dualistic mind merges into Dharmadhatu, our action, the causes and fruitions will continuously to manifest. So according to the commentary on the wisdom chapter of Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Mipham Rinpoche, as well as in resting the mind, it says that until attaining full Buddhahood, one should continuously to accumulate all kinds of merit and practice with great diligence and persistence. So before the dualistic mind merges into Dharmadhatu, what does it mean by merges into Dharmadhatu? It means that by the most subtle aspect of the dualistic mind dissipates and attaining, at the time of attaining Buddhahood, that's the time the most subtle aspect can dissipate as well. In another word, at the state of Vajra-like samadhi, after attaining the Vajra-like samadhi, then all of those subtle graspings would disappear. However, at the state of, for example, attaining the first bhumi, some of those usual graspings, or in another word, the coarse graspings, they would dissipate. That also applies to practitioners who attain the path of seeing. However, for practitioners who have not had those attainment yet, even if you think you have attained enlightenment, but if you still have grasping, if you still have the fixation of apprehending and apprehended, then all the good and bad karma would definitely lead to its corresponding fruition. I believe I've told this story before. It was back in Tang Dynasty. There was one Dharma master whose name is Master Huaihai, and he was giving teachings to many people when he was living in a mountain retreat. he noticed that among all the assemblies who were listening to his teachings, there was this old man. Nobody knows where he came from, but he was very attentive when listening to the Dharma teachings. So Master Huaihai got curious and asked him, "Where did you come from and who are you?" This old man replied by saying that, "I used to be also a Dharma teacher during the Venerable Kashyap's time." After listening to the Dharma teaching and after giving Dharma teaching, there was this one person who asked me, as a great practitioner, are they subject to causes and fruition as well? At that time, I said that, oh no, great practitioners, they are not subject to causes and fruition. For such cause and fruition, I was reborn as a fox for 500 years. Now I'm listening to your class and I wonder, could you answer me this question? Do great practitioners also subject to causes and fruition? Master Huaihai said, well, the great practitioners do not be subjected to causes and fruition. After he stated that, the old man understood and then he left. After a short period of time, Master Huaihai then told his disciple saying that, can you go around and seek for a corpse of a fox? There must be a fox nearby that's already dead, and you should bring it here, and we should practice for this fox to eradicate all the negative karma this particular sentient being accumulated. Therefore, he did. So this story demonstrates that karmic causes and fruitions are true. As a practitioner, even a great practitioner, we should still be very careful with the causes and fruitions. Let it be virtuous deeds or vicious deeds, we have to be very careful with what to accept and what to reject. According to Nirvana Sutra, it also states that by the kind of practitioner who practice virtue, they are the ones, the celestial beings. The ones who practice vice, they can be named as the hell realm beings. It is because whatever the sentient beings practice, they would definitely experience the correlating fruition. The causes and fruition, we cannot go past it unless you truly attain full enlightenment. Other than that, there's no way for you to surpass the causes and fruition. Some people, after studying some Madhyamika, after studying that all phenomena are emptiness, then they feel that, oh, it's okay, it's fine. Even the vice deeds are still empty. Or there are people who practice Zen or Maha'ati for a little bit, and then they had a little bit of understanding, a little bit of insights. They think that they can speak whatever they like. They think that they can do whatever they like. It would be the best if you don't pretend of knowing things. It would be the best to study with the teachings that's directly given by the great masters of the past as well as the Buddha. Also, you have to rely on the logic as well. I think we should be aware that we need to be very careful to discipline ourselves, especially when it comes to the discipline of ourselves. We shouldn't count on the discipline given by law. Rather, we should conduct self-discipline. Because as much as the law is quite well-rounded, there could be still lots of loopholes. Therefore, the Dharma teachers and monastics, whomsoever you are, it will be the best for you to make sure that you can discipline yourself.
就是很认真的，就是虔诚的。
It would be the best to
做任何事情的话，那就是这个是习惯
carry out your activity
不然的话，我们有些人是
with great carefulness.
喜欢学一些这个小聪明的这种这个。
Otherwise, I think people nowadays they really enjoy those shortcuts.
找到一种这个机会，就说起来是这样的。
They're quite opportunists. As long as they can find an opportunity, as long as they can get their goals met, then they will do it. But slowly and slowly, if you were to conduct your actions in such a way, you will violate lots of the causes and fruitions. So we have to be very careful when we're giving teachings. That is the time that we have to be extremely careful. Now let's look at the next part, which talks about how all the phenomena are dependent on mind, which has two aspects. The first one is actual explanation, and the second one is using a metaphor or using an example to further explain. Let's look at the first verse over here. Mind formation creates all karmas based on mind, appears in mind, and mind attaches. To tame the confused mind, one shall be diligent. So over here, it says that all the appearances, let it be the phenomenal or the bodily or the mental appearances, they in fact are all the appearances in mind. This is really crucial because the mind formations based on mind, it could create all kinds of karma. The sentient being's mind is very much prone to ignorance. This is a cause. With this cause, then mind can continuously create karma. So at first it's the mind formation, and mind formation is a part of the correlation to ignorance, a part of the formation in the 12 links. Out of this particular type of formation or this production, then with this mind, based on this mind, it could continuously create karma. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be neutral. Then naturally you will experience the correlating fruition. Do you remember that? Do you remember that verse?
肯定很多法师啊，就是这些的话，那就是
I believe many of the Dharma teachers at this point, they're very happy because they don't, because I don't have many people who can answer me the questions or give me the answers when I teach now. 现在问居士的也没有，问中观也没有，问 There is no one that I can ask about Abhidharma or Madhyamika or the Buddhist logic. All the practitioners sitting around me are the ones abiding in the state of Mahāti. Anyhow, over here it says that mind as the cause, then there are all kinds of karma that's produced, that's formed. And after the karma has been created, then there naturally will be the fruition, and then there's the happiness and suffering. So these kinds of fruition of happiness and suffering, they still would appear in mind. We should know that all kinds of those kinds of appearances, they're still on mind. They're simply the appearances, however mind would attach to it. This is quite potent. As long as there is ignorance, there is karma. As long as there's karma, there is the appearance of happiness and suffering. And then after the appearance of happiness and suffering appears in mind, with the length of time, the mind will start to attach to it. And then the more solidified it is, with more solidity of grasping on all kinds of phenomena, we will spin in samsara. So in order to tame this kind of mind, we need to engage diligently in contemplation, study, and by receiving the teaching in such a diligent way, we should practice diligently so that we can attain the realization of the correct Dharma. Otherwise, all the karma that's created by the body, speech, and mind, they are reliant on our mind. If our mind is not tamed, then it would be very difficult to tame our body, speech, and mind. It's very difficult to tame our karma. According to Tattva City, it says that if one were to have only created the karma of mind, however, not having conducted any action through body and speech, the fruition of the mind would still appear. However, if only create the karma of body and speech, but not with the intention of mind, then there would be no karmic consequences of the body and speech. Therefore, we should know that the karma of mind is the most important. According to Patrul Rinpoche, he said that without the good aspiration by practicing preliminary practices, then there is no virtuous fruition. However, according to Khenpo Achung's guru, whose name is Nyushu Longto, he said that by practicing the preliminary practices without the correct aspiration, it is simply planting a virtuous seed. Therefore, what's the most important is really to train our mind. We have to train in our aspiration. According to Venerable Atisha, he said that there was someone who practiced the Chakra Sambhara, but after practicing it, he then was later reborn in hell realm. Why so? It is because his aspiration is impure. If your mind is impure, even if you were to seemingly practicing all kinds of virtuous deeds, such as turning the prayer wheels or chanting the various kinds of liturgies, but if your mind is filled with aggression, then those activities are not as meaningful at all. So that means that we should really tame our mind first. According to the Sutra of Right Mindfulness, it also says that in order to tame the mind, one should start by listening to the Dharma. And then if one were not to listen to the Dharma, there is no other ways to tame the mind. So we have to really tame our mind through listening to the Dharma. This is quite important. We have to first study the methods to tame our mind and then practice it. We have to learn to look at our mind, to look at if our aspiration is virtuous or not. If it's just neutral without any tendency. If you were to be here to listen to a class, but you have all kinds of aggression towards the fellow Dharma practitioners, or have harbor some kinds of aggression towards the Dharma teacher, then even if you stay throughout the whole class, it is not very virtuous. It would be, if you harbor all kinds of aggression, it would be the best not to come to the class. That might be a little bit better. This also applies to when people make supplications or make all kinds of wishes when they circumambulate the stupas and so on. For the kind of people with the genuine aspiration for enlightenment or for bodhicitta, their aspiration and their action would generate immeasurable merit. And for people who have very vicious aspirations, then they not only would not be protected by the celestial beings, rather the fruition would be a vice fruition. Sometimes I think to myself, it is quite crucial for us to tame the mind. It's very difficult for us to be sitting here to listen to the Dharma teachings. And I'm quite aware that everyone's habitual tendencies are very different. Yesterday we talked about the three types of tendencies. Some of us who are sitting here, they could be from the celestial realm, some from the human realm, and some are the virtuous friends, some are not so virtuous. It is very much based on our mind. Now that by relying on this wonderful Dharma teaching, if you can little by little practice your mind, if you can try even to diminish a little bit of your aggression or of your greediness or of your jealousy or of your stinginess, and then in that way it will be very helpful. Also, I think it's quite important to practice the sacred outlook to the fellow practitioners as well as the Dharma teacher. Before each of the class, we would remind everyone that we should generate the mind of bodhicitta with the extensive aspiration, with the profound aspiration. We should benefit sentient beings. And this extensive aspiration is to benefit all sentient beings. And the profound aspiration is to view everyone and everything is pure. According to Khenpo Ngachong, he said that if one were to see the guru as a mundane person, then it is just like receiving a city in front of a dog. But in Tibetan language, I believe it said water, but I can't remember exactly. We have to go back and compare the different editions. So what it means is that even if you were to receive the Dharma teaching from a supreme teacher, but if you were to view this supreme teacher as a mundane being, then it is just like receiving empowerment from the jeweled vase and receiving the Amrita and seeing the Amrita as ordinary water. Then the Dharma teaching that this person receives is definitely not as supreme. Therefore, it is really important for us to practice sacred outlook when it comes to the guru or the sangha member. If you were to only look at the faults of the others, then the mundane beings can find all kinds of faults. So we should practice the sacred outlook, seeing everyone as sacred and as pure. Even if you can't, then you should contemplate upon the merit of Buddha nature. Everyone has Buddha nature, then you should view them in such a way. So I really hope that everyone can truly practice the pure outlook, just as stated in the words of my perfect teacher. If you can do so, if you can memorize it, if you can receive even a little bit of teaching, if those teachings could change a little bit of your mind stream. For example, in the past, your mind stream is very dry and very cold. It's just like a bare tree without leaves or fruits. But slowly, with the nectar of the Dharma that moistens your mind, your heart started to get more moistened and get a little bit more signs of warmth. In this way, you start to generate more faith to the teacher, to the Dharma, to the Sangha as well. And then at that time, whatever you do, whatever you see, what kind of activities you carry out would be very comfortable to the others. It would be very warm, and you won't have all kinds of wrong views, all kinds of bad thoughts at all times. That's the first point, which is everyone should tame your own mind. Another one is that you have to supplicate the three jewels and the teacher at all times, so that you can eradicate all the inferior thoughts at the very moment. The next verse then talks about it is a further explanation based on the example, where it says that just like being intoxicated by datura, myriads of appearances manifests. So the datura plant is an intoxicating plant, where after people drinking the juice of it, then after that people would start to see all kinds of manifestations, all kinds of mirage of mountains, rivers, ground, or the elephants and the horses and so on. I think we covered it also in the way, entering the way of a great vehicle. if you want to give it a try, in my backyard, I also have this particular plant. You can give it a try. But I heard that if you don't take too much, it's not a problem. I've heard that from some of our farmers over here or herders over here. If they were to mistakenly eaten it, it's not too much of a problem, or they would only have some short periods of time of illusions. In the Yunnan province over here, there are lots of poisonous mushrooms, and after people take them, they would see all kinds of mirage and all kinds of illusions. I heard these two stories, one of which someone was sitting in a car, and then after taking those poisonous mushroom, this person thought that he's a cup of tea, and he told the driver saying that please don't drive too fast, otherwise I will spill. The other person thought that he was rowing a boat while sitting on a couch along with 3 other people all rowing boats. So all kinds of mirage would appear. While appearing, there is really no true existence of it. There is no solid nature that's attached to it at all. But nowadays, of course, we don't even need any of those intoxicating plants. We just look into the TV or computer, we see all kinds of manifestations. According to Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that in fact there is nothing intrinsically existent. Everything is based on the apprehending and apprehended. That is how there are the manifestations. But people, the mundane beings, would attach to those manifestations as completely true. That is how they are imprisoned in samsara and continuously to spin in this wheel. That's the teaching given over there. And according to Samadhi Raja Sutra, there's also a similar teaching given in there. Says that if one were to drink alcohol, they would perceive the ground to be rotating.
这三摩地妄经里面的说的和这个呢，也是意思一样的。但是我们如果你没有系统的学习的话呢，三摩地妄经里面就是如果有人这个
For people who, after hearing this particular quote, they would think that yes, people after drinking alcohol, when they're drunk, they would see that the ground is rotating. But the world is just like that. Maybe their understanding is very shallow. They wouldn't be able to understand that. In fact, all of the phenomena in this samsara are illusory. So the understandings of the mundane beings or people who had never studied it, their understanding of this profound teaching are still very shallow. Now the next verse says that by these illusions are devoid of existence, they are only the product of confusion. The previous verse is the example, and this one is the explanation. Over here, it points out that it is really just the confused mind that perceived and that produced the illusions. For example, the 6 realms, all the confused mirage of the 6 realms are simply just empty appearances. The 3 virtues, the 3 high realms and the 3 lower realms in front of different beings. The animal realms beings would perceive the animal realm phenomena, and in front of the human beings, then we see all kinds of large urban cities, countries, and ethnics, and conflicts, war, famine, all kinds of confusion. It is exactly just like after drinking the intoxicating plant soup, then all kinds of mirages would appear. However, one should know that they're simply empty appearances. Especially when we use wisdom to make observation, we would be able to know that this is just a limitless, empty mirage. It is mirage without any appearance, without appearing at all. There is no intrinsic existence. So that's how we can perceive and how we can understand the appearances of samsara. Now it is the concluding verse, which is the merit of making such observation. It says that observing the nature of samsara that's just like a shadow, how and where is the beginning? By this understanding of samsara, by this understanding, one should understand nirvana that leads to liberation from three realms and attain perfect enlightenment. So here it explains that samsara has the nature that is just like a shadow. The beginning and how samsara started, how the animate and inanimate world started. We have already covered that yesterday. The pure aspect appears from the Buddha nature and then the impure from Alaya. However, the nature is just like the space which is uncompounded. How could the uncompounded give birth to the compounded? It is just like within space there's earth, or within the element of air, it could give rise to the other elements. According to a great master Da Hui, he said that where does birth come from? Where does death go? One should know that the coming and going, then one can name oneself as a Buddhist, or one who studies the Buddha Dharma. He stated this particularly from the aspect of birth and death. For someone who can understand where the birth and death comes and goes, then we can say that person is a genuine practitioner. Or a Buddhist disciple, or a Buddha Dharma student, we can say that. But nowadays, I think many of the fellow Buddhist practitioners don't have time to engage in any research, studies, contemplation, and practice. Many people nowadays don't know how and where ignorance comes from. Ignorance, in fact, appears from the basic ground, and this basic ground can be described as this Buddha nature that is uncompounded. This is the nature of it. But to say this is a nature, it is not a solidly existent one thing. Therefore, we need to make this observation how the shadow-like samsara started. By knowing this, then we will be able to understand the nature of nirvana. By knowing this, we will be able to see that our mind and our nature is pure nirvana. Knowing that is the liberation from the three existence. So eventually we will be liberated from the three existence and attain the full enlightenment. That would be the fruition. This teaching is not just a teaching that's given in Vajrayana. It is also taught in the Sutrayana tradition. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, or in the Perfect Enlightenment Sutra, except those teachings in the Sutrayana teachings are taught in a very hidden way. For example, in the Perfect Enlightenment Sutra, it says that all sentient beings from beginningless time, the shadow-like, the illusion-like ignorance derived from the perfect awareness of all Tathagatas. There is the teaching like that. According to the ordinary beings, I think it would be very difficult to understand. The Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment talks about how 12 bodhisattvas asked the questions and the Buddha addressed their questions. the way the Buddha addressed their questions are very similar to that is taught in the Vajrayana teaching. Master Taishu, Master Na Huijing, they had explained on some of those teachings. I think it's quite important for us to sometimes combine the view from Vajrayana to the view of the absolute teachings in the Mahayana teaching, in the Mahayana sutras. Venerable Longchenpa, in fact, sometimes he also quotes from the Sutrayana teachings as well, sometimes Avatamsaka Sutra, sometimes Samadhi Raja Sutra, to further validate his teaching. In fact, there is no difference. In the first chapter, as you can see, that where does samsara come from? It is from the base. And what is the base? It's stated very clearly already. So I hope those of you who studied this wish-fulfilling treasury, you should understand where does people come from, where does the samsara come from. Then you'll be able to come close to that view. This base and base appearance was taught by Ponsog Rinpoche before. In the other treasuries, sometimes there are teachings also given on this particular aspect of teaching. For example, the treasury of words and meaning. It also had stated such teaching at the beginning in the treasury of a supreme vehicle. It also talks about that in the treasury of the nature as well. Some of those treasuries, some of them only has the verses but no commentary. Currently, we have only 3 out of the 7 treasuries that's not translated or taught, which is the treasury of philosophical schools, and the other one is the treasury of supreme vehicle, as well as the treasury of words and meaning. I really wish that I could have the time to translate those teachings and give the teaching of this. However, nowadays I feel that life is very impermanent, especially with my age. It used to be very easy for me to read books and to translate, but nowadays I have to wear glasses, and now it seems that my eyesight's been declining. Anyhow, it's just like my body is just like a domestically made car. I've used it for many years, and I think it's done a good work until now. Many Khenpos and Khenmos said that they have lots of faith towards the 7 treasuries, especially the treasury of the wish-fulfilling treasury, and they're sure that they will definitely study well. I think with this kind of aspiration, they would definitely receive lots of blessings too. This time, I hope that I can give the teaching of the wish-fulfilling treasury. Sometimes it may be longer, sometimes it may be shorter. Now we have completed the first chapter. Longchenpa purposely didn't write too much in the first chapter, and he didn't want to discourage us, I guess. But now we finished the first chapter out of 22 chapters. We should feel very accomplished. That's all for today.